Okay, I like that.
Okay, we are, let's see. Okay. Okay, we're streaming live. I'm still learning about Facebook Live. I'm Peggy Symingson.
I'm Carol Medeiros.
My mom.
Mhm.
We lived in Alaska, and before we went to Alaska, my grandparents lived there back when you could homestead land, and so we have kind of a long-rooted past there.
We do.
And I've been thinking about Alaska a lot because Alaskans survive these long, hard winters, and this whole past year has felt like a long, hard metaphorical winter.
Yes.
Would you agree?
Yes, I would. It's a good analogy.
Yeah, and so anyway, it's an interesting place, and you see a lot of reality shows about it. And so please ask questions as we live stream. So tell us about Fairbanks. Where is it, and what's like? Why are people living there?
Well, most people came to Alaska seeking the wealth of the gold, the oil, like in the Trans-Alaska Pipeline. But most people came to Alaska to go after the natural resources, such as the salmon fishing down in Valdez and the different ports like Kodiak, or they came for the lumber in the tallgrass forest in southeast Alaska. But it really came for the copper and the gold. And
yeah, definitely. Yeah, the Russians, were there in the 1800s, and then they sold it to Seward, and so Seward was a well-known name in Alaska, and a lot of things were named after him. He was the senator, I believe, who purchased Alaska at 2 cents an acre. All school children were taught that. So where is Fairbanks, and what is it like to live in Fairbanks? And then we'll get to North Pole.
Well, Fairbanks, the city itself, when we lived there, and I think even now, is pretty small. It's in the interior of Alaska, smack dab in the middle of the state, and it's bounded by mountains in the distance, Deborah Hess and Hayes Mountains. You can see Mount McKinley or Denali 125 miles away on a clear day, or if you climb up on your roof, you can see it. And then Fairbanks is anchored by Fort Wainwright Army Base and also Eielson Air Force Base.
Yeah, 2 bases. Yeah. So yeah, lots of government infrastructure there.
Yes, something like 60,000 military are there.
Wow.
Which is where I worked on the base. And my mom worked there on the base too.
That's true. And it's unique. I'd love to know more about what they train specifically for at those bases. Do you know?
Well, at Eielson, they have the F-35s fighter jets, and they have a 2-mile runway, which fascinated my father. It was a very long runway. And then at Wainwright, there are a lot of them are infantry, Army infantry, and really heavy support in the fighting zones like Iraq and Iran and Afghanistan lately.
Yeah. So it's the northern, and then there were also some old Cold War studies or whatever. Like my grandpa was involved in the Defense Early Warning System.
Yes, the DEW line.
Yeah.
He loved that. It was that clear Alaska. They still have the huge radars looking over into Russia, and they were set up to enable the DEW line to warn everybody, give us 15 minutes if they saw anybody coming at us.
Yeah, definitely. Well, so thanks for everyone for watching. Ask us questions. So what did we do in Fairbanks? I mean, like, what's there to do, and what do you remember about Fairbanks?
Oh, there was a wealth of things to do there. There's the Museum of the North, which you should start with if you go there. There's sledding and dog races that you can go to, like the Iditarod. There's ice skating, which was really great. The ice skating. We did sledding a lot. You can go on the river boat on the Nenana and the Chena River, and also the Tanana and Yukon rivers are there too. But a lot of people like to fish, and hunt caribou, and then go north to hunt polar bears.
Definitely, yeah.
Mhm.
I don't know what the restrictions are on hunting right now, but definitely a lot of tourists
Mhm.
go there. So Fairbanks is interesting because it has a little town next to it where my grandparents lived called North Pole. So
Mhm.
what is North Pole like? And it was originally developed as like this Santa Claus kind of commercial town, and they
Yeah.
have a Santa Claus house there where you can buy toys. And of course, the post office would get letters from school children. And didn't my grandparents write letters back
Mhm.
from Santa?
They did pretended to be Santa, and they loved doing that.
Yeah.
But North Pole is actually 13 miles east of Fairbanks.
Yeah, so North Pole. So you go out. It's called 12 Mile Village, I think, and you go out this long highway from Fairbanks. And it's pretty. It was far to me as a little
Yes,
child.
the Richardson Highway.
Yeah. But Fairbanks was the main town. So,
Mhm.
what else about Fairbanks should people know if they visit? There's a university there.
Oh, a beautiful university there. Fairbanks is the jumping off place to the villages, Bethel and Kotzebue. You have to fly to everything else.
That's true.
So-
Yeah,
so-
Fairbanks is probably the northernmost big town.
Mhm.
And then on the top of Alaska, of course, there's Nome and the pipeline and that kind of thing. Did the pipeline go through Fairbanks?
Yes, it went very near it. At the Richardson Highway, you can go and see the pipeline
Yeah.
on the side of the road. And they made sure the caribou and animals could go underneath it so they
Okay.
wouldn't get trapped. But yes, you can see the pipeline.
And do you remember when the pipeline started? So this is when they started to pump
Oh.
oil out of Prudhoe Bay.
Mhm. It was around 1973, 74.
Okay.
And it was so great because it was really easy to get a job at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And high pay. With the high pay came high morale,
Mm-hmm.
and it was noticeable.
Mhm.
The high morale was really noticeable.
And when did the pipeline days end?
Oh my goodness. I would say 78, 79.
Okay.
Of course, there's maintenance on them now.
Yeah, that's true. And my aunt
Maintenance.
worked up at the Prudhoe Bay, far north where the sun hardly rises.
She worked in the oil fields there, her and her boyfriend, and made super good pay.
Yeah, the money. People can go up. I don't know how it is now, but you can go up and make some bucks.
Mhm. And so, like I said before, people are coming at Alaska to grab on to the natural resources, the high pay, pretty independent, hard workers have come to Alaska,
That's
like
true.
the Chilkoot Pass.
Yeah. How do you get through a winter in North Pole or Fairbanks? Because I didn't know any different because we were born
Yeah.
into it. But how do you get through and how long is the winter?
The winters are long, like 7 months. You have seven months of cold and snow that you have to contend with. The weather's a huge paramount topic among all of us, and the weather conditions and the road conditions. What you do, my thought about it is you prepare like a good Boy Scout or a good Girl Scout. You prepare ahead of time.
Yeah.
For example, with your wood, you have a lot of cords of wood, and you stock up for yourself with layers and layers of clothes.
Yeah, that's true. I remember getting dressed to go, and it just took a long time to get ready. You have to plug your car in.
But the hard part to me, was the darkness. You have this short days, 3-4 hours of twilight, or 3 or 4 hours of what they call daylight, and that was really hard to contend with.
That's true.
But my mom always said, just stay busy.
Yeah.
So that's what we did.
That's true. I remember growing up, we watched a lot of TV in the winter. So that was the 70s. I don't see any questions anyone has. let's see, Fairbanks was pretty different than Anchorage, would you say?
Yes, very, very, very much. You get more sunny days in Fairbanks, which to me made it better. You get a lot of rain and clouds in Anchorage, but Anchorage is backed up to some beautiful Chugach Mountains, and it's much bigger, much more civilized, like you said the other day, Peggy.
Did you ever go to, so we actually had some relatives that ran an Aviation gas station between Fairbanks and the far north. And I think it was one of the only, one of our relatives on here would know more about it. But do you know anything about that? And how long did they run? It's called Avgas.
Yeah.
And so who did that and what was that like?
Well, it was my father's brother, my father Hardy's brother named Oliver, and he ran a
outpost.
It was really quite an enterprise. He ran a no frills bed and breakfast, but you had the essentials, all of the essentials like food, warmth, bed, and most of all, Oliver was a really great storyteller, hunter, flyer.
Yeah.
And so back in those days, he made a lot of money because what he had there was in demand. It's a great jump off for polar bear and other hunters.
And it was called Umiat, right? Umiat. Umiat was the name of the little outpost. And I think I saw it it's all over the internet. You can Google it.
It is, and it was actually a family enterprise. My father would fly up supplies to him.
Yeah,
It was
so
great.
and that's the other thing is airplanes are everywhere in Alaska, and I mean little ones like Cessnas. Do you remember anything about pilot culture?
Well, the pilot culture is really real thing there. You have very few roads, and naturally tourists, but other people that live there, they want to see the beauty and the hunting and fishing opportunities. And so you'll end up flying a lot of places or getting a charter. So there were a lot of charter airlines.
Okay, we have a question. I'm sorry to interrupt. We'll come back to pilot. Sure. Okay, someone said, how did they keep the house warm? Just wear lots of clothing. They just had a huge heating bill.
I remember my
heating bill.
I had a small house in the woods, and my heating bill, this is in the mid 70s.
Yeah.
It's $400 a month. It took a lot of fuel oil to heat it. Plus, my father showed me how to build a fire in a fireplace. And then another thing we did, I don't know how to say it.
Long underwear.
Well, yeah, we wore wool long underwear, but we curtained off the other rooms, and we'd have one little room, just one little room that we stayed in mostly.
Yeah, my grandpa would nail wool army blankets to the wall to insulate it. So people did, like, nothing was fancy, at least in Fairbanks and at least in our experience.
Nothing was fancy, like Peggy said. But we were really grateful for what we had. Everybody was. And my parents had a unique home because their ceiling, the heat rises, as you know, and the ceiling was just above their head.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, my grandparents' house was no frills.
No frills, but it was nice.
Yeah, we liked it.
But the ceiling was very low, so you didn't have so much cubic feet to have to go to the expense of heating.
Yeah, I think you just stayed warm and drink a lot of hot beverages.
Yes.
That kind of thing, staying warm. And then my grandpa would prepay his heating bill for the entire winter.
He did, and that's a great question because it was life or death matter.
Yeah, life and death. And then at school, we went to school as normal. Everything was nothing was changed. I think they had a cutoff for temperature when they would close school, and I believe it was 50 below.
I think so.
So 40 below, go to school. 50 below, stay home, and then they had a warm-up area where we could stay inside if we didn't have our mittens or whatever. And my sister and I spent a lot of time in the warm-up area.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
They just kicked us outside,
And then you want to prevent frostbite at any cost because
that happened to me once.
Yeah, frostbite is extremely painful, and Peggy and Amy would put their hands in my stomach
On my mom's stomach.
under my shirt, and that would warm them up.
Like Mama Bear, and my mom's nickname was Mama Bear. I think that's it. Yeah, for staying warm.
Yeah.
Just turn up the heat.
But we did use a lot of wood, cords of wood.
Yeah, but that was an issue. But yeah, it's kind of a macho place. I would
It
say
is. I'd say so.
macho place to live.
I would say so.
But
And
yeah,
you need the cooperation of your friends and your neighbors. Nobody's can be a stranger.
I will say too, living in Fairbanks and North Pole, the water was there were issues with the water, and so we couldn't drink for a long time in North Pole. And you can Google it. You can I won't say too much, but you can Google North Pole water or Fairbanks water and learn more about it. But it smelled like sulfur. That's all I'll say. And so we would go and get water from a creek.
Yeah. Holler water.
Or from the fire station or from the junior high. It was like it took a village, literally to. So that was a big issue. I remember
It was
that.
a big issue. We'd go to
The water,
Fox, if you know where that is.
Yeah, you can get water from Fox. We'd haul the water.
Yeah, so you didn't waste it.
Yeah. So yeah, water was a big deal. I think that's it. What about anything about the food in Fairbanks? There's not a ton of variety like there was in like San Diego.
No, when I first went up there, you were pretty much on your own. I was a kid, but you were pretty much on your own with the food, Peggy. They had like, I think, one store. And so you went to, and then now they have the big box stores.
Yeah.
You can mail order it and stuff.
Yeah, and so my grandma, it was the biggest deal when the Starbucks came up there.
Oh,
And like
yes.
her getting a caramel latte was like,
Yeah, I'd say my parents and others that live there, what I noticed about them, Peggy, is they appreciate stuff. They appreciate help, labor, and they appreciate goods and services like nobody I've ever known before.
Yeah, and back then in the 70s, they didn't have, I don't know that they had a few stores like Fred Meyer's and stuff like that. But my grandma would order from Sears mail order. And that's actually what Sears was designed for, was mail order. And so that was just like her favorite thing is to order from the Sears catalog.
It was.
And then get it. Well, I think that's all we have about Fairbanks. So we appreciate your question to Gloria.
Yeah,
all right.
I love the questions if anybody has any.
Yeah, and thanks. And you can always post them on the live feed after it's over. So we appreciate. Oh, and then we didn't talk about Golden Days. And so in Fairbanks, they celebrate the gold rush origins of the town do they still do this? By every year doing the Golden Days parade. And so they'd like, it's just fun.
I had great fun because their whole town shows up.
Yeah, so we really enjoyed that. And Fairbanks is still like a small-ish town, I think. But it's, I think a lot of what we said about it is still true, like the military presence and, but yeah, it's right in the interior. Great town. Oh, last thing. One of our favorite things to do was go to the Fairbanks Library.
Oh, yeah.
Like that was the place to stay warm. And my grandma would go and we'd all go as a group. And so that was a good time.
That's true, Peggy.
So libraries kept us warm.
Very fond memories.
Entertained. Yes. So Fairbanks, what a great town. So that's it. We have the Northern Lights in the background and we really appreciate people thinking about Alaska, and it's worth looking up like the history of Alaska. It's like part of the US, but it's kind of out there, far flung. But it's a long journey in and out of Alaska. So we encourage you to virtually visit. Thanks for your question, Gloria. We hope people can Google Alaska or read about it. So, okay, that's it. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.